For this next part, what you're going to be needing is you're going to need your completed box, okay, without a lid. You will have a slab of clay rolled out. I used my rolling pin to make that. I am going to need my metal scraping tool. I'm going to need my needle tool. I will also need my scoring tool, my esgraffito tool, and my wooden sculpture tool. All right, that's what you're going to need. So go ahead, roll out a slab of clay. This slab of clay should be about the size of your base, right? Okay, so make sure you get that done. Once you have those things ready, come back over to this video to see what we're going to do. Okay, so go ahead and pause. So now that you have this rolled out and you've got your box, what you're going to do is, believe it or not, this is actually the base of the pot. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip my box on top so that it fits right on top of my clay. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my esgraffito tool and I'm going to cut the clay around my box. Okay, so I'm going to cut around the rim of the box. It's okay if you cut bigger than your box, but you don't want an undercut. What I mean is you don't want to cut underneath your box. All right, the base of the clay that's down there. So this part, that could be bigger than the opening. That's fine. It's better than having it too small. All right, it's much easier to take clay away than to add it. So you'll see that now when I flip it over, it's on there. That's awesome. That's what I want to begin with, okay? Now, go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to show you the next part. For this part, what I'm going to do is I have the slab at the bottom, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take off my box, and I'm going to go and I'm going to score in these areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to score right where the clay is going to touch. All right, so once again, scoring these areas. I've scored that part, move that out of the way, and I'm also going to score the parts of the box that are going to actually attach to the base. So I'm going to score here. Once that's scored, once both of those pieces are scored, I'm going to take a little bit of water, and I mean a little bit. Now I'm going to flip my box over on top. For this next part, I'm going to need to change my perspective. All right? So here you can see the bottom where the base of my sculpture is actually, or excuse me, the base of my box is actually touching my box. Okay, and you'll notice I have a little bit of overhang. That's fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm putting my hand on top to kind of put some pressure down on top of this. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my scoring tool right here. I'm going to take my scoring tool and I'm going to score up into my box. All right. And I'm going to do that all the way around. Now this little bit of clay that comes off, that's fine. I'm going to hang on to it. All right. Put pressure on top of it so that way make sure that your slab box is actually pushing into the base. Once I've gone all the way around, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my sculpting tool. Okay, and similar to what I've done before, I'm actually going to take my sculpting tool and I'm going to run it along the side here. And that cleans it up. See that? Now my seam is disappearing. I can take some of this extra clay and bring it up. Okay, I'm going to run it against the side again. Going to turn it here. See, I'm not getting rid of those things, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to come up. from here I could actually clean up my edges. For the next part, again, I could clean up some things in here, but for the next part, I'm actually going to have to change my perspective once again so I could show you how to do this part. Alright, now like I said before, okay, what we just attached is technically the top of the box. So the base that we had before is actually going to be the top of the box, believe it, or excuse me, the base of. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to cut this off. So we're going to cut off a little part off of here. Now, one of the things that you have to be very careful about, all right, is that you have a nice straight line. Straighter the better. Me personally, I like to grab a ruler. So anything that's a nice straight edge, but you definitely want it to be thicker than the thickness of the base was before. Now remember, I use my pin tool, so I know anything I use needs to be thicker than this. My ruler definitely cuts it. All right, so go ahead and use that. If you want to, use a ruler. It doesn't have to be a metal ruler like mine. If you notice, I'm not measuring. What I'm doing is I'm going to come in here with my ruler. I'm going to hold it at the top, and I'm going to just draw underneath my ruler so it leaves a line. I'm going to turn, and I'm going to do it again. Okay, so I'm holding it right at the top here, drawing my line, turn it again, and I'm going to do that on all four sides. Something that's important is right here, you'll notice that these are not lining up, so I need to fix that. Okay, since that's not lining up, I have to find where my error was. Looking at it is going to actually help me, and there it is. That's where my error was, so I'm going to fix it. There we go, like butter. Look at that. Fixed. Cool. All right. Now, this part I cannot stress enough. This is super important. You need your Sculpting tool, and what you're going to be doing is you're going to actually cut through the clay, but you're not going to cut straight in. You're going to cut at an angle. All right. Now, I'm glad I paused because it took me like about 10 minutes to find my Sculpting tool. All right. So I've got my Sculpting tool, and I'm going to be using this edge. Now, what I was getting at before is when I'm going to cut into these lines in here, I'm not going to come straight in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut at an angle. So again, all right, I'm not cutting straight in, I'm cutting at an angle. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to go in and I'm going to pull straight across. I'm going to get into the corner and I'm going to go nice and slow and I'm going to come straight across and I'm coming along that line. So this is what it's going to look like. All right. Now notice I'm not going to start in the corner. I'm actually going to start just inside the corner. I come in at an angle. See that? At an angle. That's basically what it's going to do. It's going to create a bevel. Now, being as careful as possible, I'm cutting through. Get to the corner, right? I'm at the corner, and I'm going to actually pull out and pull back in, or push back in. Keep it at an angle, and I'm going to cut through. If my lines go slightly off, that's not a big deal. Now comes the fun part. You kind of grab opposite corners, and I'm going to slightly lift up. And you'll notice that it pops right off. Pretty cool, right? Yeah, now here's the thing though. When you pop this off, don't force it. If some of your clay is stuck, cut back into it, okay? Don't just try to force it, you'll ruin it. All right, but now once it's off, you're going to move it off. All right, and you're gonna lay it flat right away. All right, now that you have it open, you can see inside, and you're actually going to wind up putting coils inside of here. All right, inside of your walls, where your walls and your base now meet, you need a coil in there, okay? So you're gonna have to get in there. And then we're also gonna clean up these. All right, we're gonna clean up these edges in here just a little bit. I'm gonna show you how to do that in a moment. All right, the first things first is I wanna make sure that I get the coils in there. Here you can see that I've actually rolled out a couple coils. All right, and so now what I'm going to do is I lay down the coil in here. I haven't actually really attached it. I'm just kind of pushing it in and using my sculpting tool to be able to kind of get that into there, right? So now I'm going to go ahead and start attaching it inside of there using my sculpting tool. Now that is welded inside, right? Now all I have to do is I have to clean that up so it looks like I didn't add any coil. So that's going to take me a little bit, all right? So I'm going to come in here with my sculpting tool again, and I'm going to start to smoothen it out as much as possible. And if possible, I may jump in there with my metal kidney tool. Pretty good. Now I'm going to double check to make sure that my lid comes back on. Now one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wind up putting a key on this, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a little bit. This next part is pretty fun. It's the decorating part. Alright, so you're going to wind up actually decorating all four sides of this thing. Okay? Now what you have to remember though is that it isn't going to go like this. What it's actually going to do, because we're going to make this kind of like a lantern, is it's going to go this way where it'll be able to come up and you'll be able to put candles or whatever you want on the inside and have this go right up on top right there. Okay? So think about that. This is actually the bottom right here, right? Now, one of the things that I'm going to do to help me remember where the sides kind of line up is I'm actually going to put a little dot here, and then I'm going to put another little dot right there, just to remind me that those are the top sides that connect. All right, that's how it lines up. Now, what I did for my decoration, okay, is I did this. Okay, I think that's going to be pretty cool. All right, so now notice what I've done is I've taken the piece of paper. This was the base, okay? This was the base. So I didn't make a new piece of paper. I kept the ones that I had, okay? And I drew, and you can see I made some mistakes here. And then I wound up going over. So you could do this in pencil. I did it in pen because it makes my life easier. That's just the way that I work. And so now what I'm able to do is, since this is the bottom here, I'm actually going to line it up, right? So this is the way that it's going to go. But trying to cut it this way is going to be really, really hard. So I'm going to flip it, knowing that this thing is going to be upside down, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to want to cut off more off the top than I am the bottom. So technically this is the top, that's the bottom. So it's going to go like this. See that? And I got it lined up right there. Okay. Now, to be able to put this on here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sculpting tool, and what I'm going to do is by holding it on here like this, okay, and because the paper is thin, the moisture of the clay is going to help me hang on to it. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to trace my lines. I am not pushing hard. And it leaves my little marks right in there. Now I'm going to do that to these other sides. Now that I've actually transferred my image all the way across on all four sides, Now my next step is actually going to be to start cutting and incising, piercing these things out. So I'm going to need a couple things. First of all, I'm going to need a very clean sgraffito tool. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I'm going to need a lot of patience. Okay, I can't be rushing through this. If I rush through this, I'm going to screw things up. All right. Number three, you're going to want to have access to the inside of your box. Now remember, one of the things that I did is I put 2 little dots so you could see which sides I'm going to line up. I'm going to make this dot just a little bit better. So there we go. Okay. So that way I could see which side's going to go where. All right. So now first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take this off. Now I'm going to start piercing and incising through. Now to do this, again, all right, this one, yeah, this I can actually go in straight through. That's fine. I don't have to have it at an angle. And what I want to do is I want to hold on the inside so that way as I'm piercing through the clay, I don't ruin my walls. Also, I don't want my walls to be really, really soft. Okay, I don't want them to be too plastic. Right now, they're closer to leather hard. Leather hard is firm, okay, but it's not dry. See how it could still move a little bit. That's good, but it doesn't flop over. That's what I don't want. I don't want it to flop over. If it flops over, I'm going to have a lot of problems. I'm going to go ahead and start cutting through a little bit. I'll try to do maybe one side, and then I'll move on and let you work. Oh, and by the way, when you start cutting, cut at the top first, cut away at the top, and work your way down. Because if you cut the bottom, you're going to remove clay that actually is a structural support to the clay up here. Think about that. If this is heavier than the bottom, you're going to collapse your clay. So cut away at the top first and then work your way down. Alright, so there's one side done, alright? That took a long time. That's fine. I'd rather take my time and get it to look nice than to try to, rush through it. Alright, so now I got the other 4 sides to do. So that's where I'm at now, okay? I'm going to go ahead and do the other 4 sides. You go ahead and do your own and do what you got to do. Have fun.